Hello, welcome back. Today, as part of this series, Data Modeling Masterclass, so we are bringing up the new video. In this video, we will understand who are the key stakeholders or who are the key people who need to be involved in the data modeling. So, data modeling, as we have seen in the previous videos, so it is one of the key aspects in any program or any project or any product building for that matter. And so it is not just about the data architect or the person who is technically understands who involved in the data modeling. So there are other stakeholders also need to be involved, so as needed in the project based on its complexity, so you can get maximum out of that data model. So we will understand who are those key stakeholders and how do they participate in data modeling. So before proceeding, if you are new to this channel, we would recommend you to please subscribe and also press bell button for instant notifications. So let's get started. So definitely data architect need to be involved because he is a person who completely owns data model, right? He is accountable and he is the owner of the data model, right? So he need to be involved, and business analyst who is from the business, who understands the business aspect of it, who need to be involved. Database administrator, because like you take any IT project, right? So data is a key aspect, which is a backend of any program or a product. So they need to be involved, and there might be subject matter experts who understands the particular domain, and there are end users, right? So as an end user, we need to get their perspective also, and there is a definitely a development team who might be developing the user interface, who might be developing the functionality, who might be working as a data engineer, data scientist, right? And finally, we have the quality assurance team. There is a testing team who need to understand this process so that they can perform their better testing use cases. And finally, we have the project managers also, who definitely need to understand how to leverage the capability of data modeling and make sure that all these people are involved in the data modeling process, and they ensure that so none of the assumptions are made, right? So the project managers also need to be kind of aware of and involved in the data modeling. So in detail, we will explore all of these options, all of these key stakeholders who will be part of data modeling with the examples and how they can contribute. Right. So let's start with a business analyst. Right. So business analysts are the people who bridge a gap basically, right, between the business stakeholders and the technical team, because so these are the people who acts as a intermediate layer between the business and the technical teams. So they understand the business language, and they understand some technical language, so they know the common language between these two teams, and they gather and analyze the business requirements, translate them to technical specification, and ensure the data model aligns with the organization goals. So here, let's take an example, right? Like during requirement gathering in a retail company, a retail project or retail company, right? So the business analyst need to gather the requirement, by analyzing sales data for a region, for a product category, and like considering the customer demographics. So these requirements are then need to be translated into a data model. So to ensure that the necessary data attributes and relationships are captured. So here, the business analysts need to involve a data model, data architect, and they need to align with their understanding whether whatever the business requirements are there from the business, are they really reflecting in the data model, because data architect might not understand the business perspective sometimes. So that's where business analysts need to bring that business perspective and make sure whatever the data architect has made, so there is no assumptions which might lead to a misunderstanding of the requirements, right? So here they need to understand and evolve. So data architects, so as I said, like these are the core people who need to be part of the any data modeling, and they completely own the end-to-end data data modeling requirement, and designing that data models, and they design the overall structure of the data environment, including databases and the models. They ensure that data model is scalable, efficient, and meet the organization's long-term data management goals. right? And let's take a example, right? Again, so in a healthcare organization, say for example, a data architect need to design a data model for a patient's record to maintain a patient record. So here, data architect need to consider the relationship between patient demographics, their medical history, their treatments, and the billing information to create comprehensive data model that supports various applications within the organizations. So these are the data architect are the center of everything, right? So whatever stakeholders are there, so they will be there, but data architects need to completely own that, and they need to make sure that like whatever they reflect in the technical data model is aligned with all the stakeholders. And finally, like other database architect admins also we need to involve, right? Because so they understand, so they need to kind of they are the people who understands the data base implementation at a ground level, and administrator implements and maintain the database systems based on the data model. See, database administrators, what they do is they convert the data model into a reality. So they bring that, they take the data model and they implement in the database system. So they need to ensure that data integrity, security, performance by optimizing the data structures and configurations need to be done here. So the more better they understand the data model, so definitely um, they can deliver much better. And consider example like a DBA implements a data model designed for a e-commerce platform. They get the data model from the architects, and they try to implement or they try to design a e-commerce platform database or the schema basically, right? And then what they do is they start creating the tables, define indexes, and set up database data backups to ensure that the system can handle a high volume of transaction security and efficiency. So this is the core job of DBS. But so the entire like what they need to do, how they need to do should be driven by the data model. So data model will clearly say what are the dependencies, what are the how the product should look like, right? So by if the data DBAs understand the data model properly, so they can actually utilize their skills much better, right? And subject matter experts, like again, these are the people who understands the domain specific knowledge. Suppose if you are in a retail, they understand the retail business. If you are in a banking, so they understanding the banking business very well. So or if you are in a automobile, they understand the automobile industry. So the like what are the dynamics of the automobile industry, so they understand much better. So they ensure that the data model accurately represent the intricacies of the business domain, right? So again, these are like similar to business analyst, right? But business analyst are like they have that business facing knowledge, and also they have the technical facing knowledge. So they bridge the gap between them, business and the technical people. But subject matters experts are like come and deliver peoples. Like if there is any necessity, so then only subject matters will be involved. So otherwise, a business analyst will handle this, right? So that's how it usually works, right? And let's again take example like business analyst might be consulted in one of the cases where the financial institute from different departments such as banking operations, risk management, and compliances related questions are there. And here the business SMEs need to be involved to kind of to collaborate with the data modelers to design a comprehensive data model for regulatory reporting or compliance reporting. So they provide expertise on financial products, transaction processes, and regulatory requirements. That's what they do, and that's how the data modeler need to consider all these aspects when they're all these aspects which come from the business SMEs or the subject matter SMEs to when they are designing the data model. And end users are like individuals who interact with the data and the reports generated, or the projects basically with the UI, right? From the data model, so their input is crucial for validating the usability and effectiveness of the data model, because they are the ultimate users, right? Like if you're performing a user acceptance testing, so that's where they come into picture and they give the business sign off for the user acceptance testing. So let's take an example in manufacturing company. Production managers, quality assurance teams, and inventory managers are end users who rely on data modelers to monitor uh, production process, track inventory levels, and analyze product quality metrics. So their feedback helps refine the data model here to to better meet their needs, right? And so like we have a developers also, like developers who are actually maybe data engineers, data scientists, or someone who is building the application user interface or whatever, right? So these are the core IT people who implements the data model with the software application, so they ensure that the data model is integrated seamlessly into the application architecture, and the data is retrieved, manipulated, and stored correctly. So these guys need to clearly understand what is data model defined by the data architect. So and they need to digest that concepts, like what are the data model constitutes. So then they can build application without understanding what the architect has given. So developers might not be able to convert the data model into the actual reality, right? So the development team is again key stakeholder to understand the data model very depth knowledge, right? And let's take example in a CRM application, developers use this data model to design a database interactions. So it might be like interaction like customer profiling, tracking sales activities, generating reports, whatever, right? So they definitely write a code to fetch the data from the database, update records, perform data validations, etc. So they need to understand the data model, which table is related to which table, what are the primary key constraints, where the indexes are implemented. So why this data model is designed in this way, in a particular way, right? So all those aspects they need to understand in detail, right? So next we have a quality assurance team. These are the set of people who does the validation of the data model through rigorous testing to ensure that it actually meets the functional and non-functional requirements. So basically, so what this the quality data testing team, basically what we call, right? So they identify and report any issues related to the data integrity, performance, and usability, and they make sure that the data model are like completely translated as is without any mistakes by the developers or implementers. Basically, if you take example, QA team, the testing team in the banking application verifies that data accurately, uh, like the verify that the data model accurately basically calculates interest rates, processes transactions securely, and generated accurate financial reports. So, and they use that data model that's been created by the data architect, and they make sure that when the data model is actually get it like is implemented in the reality, right? So is there any like any or any misconceptions or any um, like any issues in the data model that also need to be identified, and also when the data model is converted to a kind of a real implementation, if there is anything like miscommunication or anything misunderstood, so that also need to be captured by the QA team. And we have a project managers finally, so who oversees the entire data modeling process, right? So ensure that it stays within stays schedule within the schedule, within the budget, and aligns with the project objectives. So they also need to coordinate, communicate with the stakeholders, track progress, and mitigate if there is any risks. Okay. And example, a project manager in a software development project ensures that the data modeling tasks are such as data requirement gathering, data modeling, design sessions, and review meetings are completed on time. So they basically facilitate between business stakeholders, architects, developers, and all the team members that we discussed so far, right? So project managers need to make sure that all these stakeholders are involved in the right phase of the data modeling and the right phase of the project, right? And if you see all of these points, right, if you quickly go back and see, so all of these teams that we were talking about here, so all of these people who are getting involved, so they give their own perspective actually to the data model. So there is nothing compulsory that we need to involve first the business analyst, we need to involve, so there is no sequence basically. So it depends completely on what kind of project you're dealing with and what kind of complexity and other things, right? So but here the main thing is the person who is a data architect is a key person who need to interact with all of these people and make sure that he captures all of these things in the data model. And so he basically, like, these all teams are not mandatory or not compulsory basically, right? um, uh, why we need to involve here is all of this team is to get their perspective, and nothing is missed or nothing is assumed when we are creating a data model, right? So, and finally summarizing what we have understood so far, right? By understanding the different roles and contribution of each stakeholders in the data modeling process, organizations can effectively collaborate to design and implement the data model. So that's the whole point here, that that needs for the business and users. So here, the main thing is like, while involving all teams enhances the data modeling process, not every team or every people is mandatory to be involved in every scenario. So the necessity of each team depends on the project's complexity and project scope and the specific requirements. Like, if there is a need of SME, so then only you need to involve SMEs, right? So SMEs are not mandatory. So if there is a need of business analyst, then only you need to, if you want to understand some business aspects, so you can involve them, or else it is not needed, something like that, right? And also, suppose you want to understand more detail from the development team, so you can involve with the development team to understand the complexity of the implementation. So if the implementation is not complex, or it's not needed, so then all these people might not be mandatory. And however, key stakeholders like business analysts, data architects, and developers are usually essential for creating robust data model. So others might not be much, but data architect, business analyst, and developer, so these three people are definitely a key people who contribute to data model, and they have to make sure that data model captures everything that the business or the project or the product expects to be delivered. So hope this was useful. Thanks for watching.